My entitled brother is demanding that I give him some money I made off of crypto after he says that he's the reason I made that money, as he suggested that I invest in that currency from the very beginning. But despite the fact that he literally gave me $0 when it comes to making this investment, he's now saying that I should be kissing his feet and that I am so selfish for not handing over any of my money. Because at this point, I feel very confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm looking to get an opinion on this little thing going on with my brother. A few months back, he was begging me into buying a specific cryptocurrency. He has been telling me for years, but it hasn't had any movement, and I have been invested in crypto for a while now. So naturally, I only put my money in places where I believe there is an opportunity to make money. Anyways, I decided to sell another cryptocurrency, and I moved some money to the one that he was telling me to buy. Well, a couple of months have passed, and now that crypto token has gone up around 7 times the amount from the initial point that I bought. My brother and I have always had a good relationship for the most part, and have shared our finances regarding the money that we've made and lost, as well as our portfolio holdings. Now that this crypto has gone up, he acts as if it was his doing that I've made money and feels entitled to some of the profits that I have made. He says things like, "You should be kissing my feet. You're so selfish," all for me not handing him any money. Mind you, there was zero, and I mean zero, of his money involved into this investment. All of it was mine. He just feels like because he told me at a time before the investment would later go up, that he is the one that told me that this was going to go up, that he somehow feels that I owe him. I need genuine advice from all angles here. I don't want to ruin our relationship since he is my brother, and I have tried talking to him, but he gets so upset when I mention that I did not make the decision because of him and that none of his money was involved. So why would he be upset at me that I made money? What should I do? Okay, first off, I want to say your brother is not the smartest person in the world, because if he really thought this was going to go up, then he should have bought some of the crypto himself. Like seriously, why would he go to you and be like, "Man, you've got to buy into this. You've got to do it. Do it, man. It's going to go up." And then not invest in that same currency that he was like, "Oh, this might go up, so I should get into it." Like, what gives him the right to be like, "Wow, you made money? Congratulations. That's my consulting fee." It's like, what are we talking about? This is crazy in my opinion. So if he really wants a cut out of this and is like, "Oh yeah, I told you about it, so you should give me money," would he then owe you money if that currency went down the drain? Because I'm pretty sure if you went to him and said, "Hey, this currency crashed, you owe me like $7,000. He would run away so quick and be like, "Well, that's your money, man. I don't have anything to do with it. Sorry, bro." So seriously, this is so ridiculous. You do not owe this guy a single penny. And the fact that he's trying to guilt trip you in this scenario, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for getting the highest grade on a test out of everybody in my class? Because right now, apparently, everybody's upset with me. And right now, I'm honestly feeling very confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I go to a high school with an advanced science program for freshmen, and my test grades haven't even been that good since I have never studied before and never needed to before. But fortunately, now I do. So I studied and I managed to get a 97. And apparently, my test grade is the best grade for that test in both sections of that course. Now, I did not know this at the time. So when I said I got a 97 after someone asked me what I got, everybody got really pissed off at me. I also have extreme ADHD and autism, so reading the room is almost impossible for me. At the end of class, I asked one of my friends, let's call him Neil for the sake of the story, wanting to know why everybody's upset. He responded by saying, "You know why everyone's upset?" To which I responded and said, "Actually, I don't." Well, since everyone usually gets higher grades than me, I assumed that everyone else got like 100% or something like that. But as we were leaving to go to the gym, a girl who we will call Jill was crying and I didn't know why. I later learned from my best friend, who we will call Sam, that he heard a kid in one of the two sections got a 40%. And our theory is that it was this girl that was crying. So Neil went over to try and make her feel better. Now, here's the thing. I've been bullied since I was 7 years old. So I know when people hate me, even though they're not admitting it. And in that moment, I got major feelings of hate from everybody. But in the past, everyone always brags about their grades, even when they know I got a grade that I was not happy with. So am I the jerk for getting a better grade than my classmates? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. These people suck. You mean to tell me that they're literally trying to make you feel bad all because you did better than them? Like, what is going on right now? How is that your fault? First of all, and I really mean this, anyone who's trying to come at you and be like, "Wow, I can't believe you got a higher grade than the rest of us," and they for some reason are trying to make you feel bad for getting a good grade, those are not good people. I would even be hesitant to be like, "Oh yeah, these are my friends," because no friend that I know of would ever treat me like this if I got a better grade than them. And the double standard here is crazy to me. They really will be like, oh yeah, we can brag about our grade, but the second you get a higher grade, that's not allowed. It's like, wait a second, so you can brag about it, but I can't, even though you didn't brag about it in this story? Someone literally just asked you and you're like, yeah, I got a 97. And then they're gonna sit there and almost act like, wow, how could you do that to us? It's like, what are we talking about here? Like, what is going on? So no, of course you're not the jerk. These people suck forever trying to make you feel bad about succeeding, and I know for a fact that if I was in your shoes, I would continue to study hard and do the best that I can, because these people are simply jealous of the fact that you did better than them on this one test. An entitled manager refuses to return me a product that he sold me that was very defective, as this cost me well over $350. So I decided to get petty by bringing my credit card company into the mix, forcing these people to get off their butts and actually do something about the product that they sold me. And I honestly feel so good at the way that I got back at them. Here's what happened. So this happened mid-2020 during COVID. Now, as a farmer, I can't take a break from anything due to the pandemic, although I still had to deal with local and state laws, such as wearing a mask in stores and keeping 6 feet apart. I was getting my combine harvester cleaned up and practically ready to start harvesting the wheats. Now, the wheat, when planted in the late fall or early winter, are meant to be harvested by the late summer, and the window to harvest them can be mere weeks. Anyways, I noticed the harvester was not starting up, and when I checked, the battery wasn't holding any charge. The trickle charger ran for a few days, and the battery remained well below the minimum required power. I guess the cold winter may have sapped the battery and it was already old. So I went to a local farming store to get a new battery, and these batteries are $350 for my John Deere harvester. So yeah, they're not cheap. They didn't take the old one for core exchange, as returns were temporarily banned, but I could take it later and get the core feedback. Well, I got it in check, and after a click, I heard nothing. When I checked the battery, it was deader than a doornail. The trickle charger couldn't detect the battery. That seemed to indicate there's a full open, like a misconnection inside, or a few damaged lead plates. So back to the store I go. It should be a simple straight exchange, right? Well, it wasn't. The state of Michigan put in a temporary ban on returns to prevent people from getting too close to employees or sharing COVID-contaminated items. So unfortunately, the only option the store offered was another $350 battery. The store policy had 2 weeks limit to return batteries for exchange and absolutely no refund. With the temporary law, I couldn't exchange it right that time. I asked if they could sell it now and issue a refund on the dead battery later when the restriction is lifted, and they said no. I can't wait until the ban is lifted to exchange the dud, as my unharvested crop would be ruined if the ban remained well into winter. At this point, I involved my credit card company because I was getting screwed out of $350 with a dead battery, no exchange allowed, and no refund later. I ended up in a three-way call for some time with my credit card, bank, and the store. They tried to find compromises like loading me another combine harvester. When I told them what model and size mine is and they looked it up, they only had a tractor that was basically useless, meaning that renting from another place would be the only option. Well, after a heart attack inducing $75 per hour, I told them there was 1,100 acres to be farmed with an average of 30 hours to clear it at best. They then suggested sending some local employees to help hand gather wheat. So I said to them, sir, do you know how much 1,100 acres of wheat is? It's roughly 1 3/4 square miles, and all of those have to be gathered in a few weeks. I would need at a minimum a few hundred people hand cutting all the wheat, thresh them all, and dump the wheat into the trucks. All of your employees might be able to do 1 acre a day, but not finish the full thing in a few weeks. And here's the thing, a few hundred people doing it for a few weeks at standard wage would far exceed the cost of one harvester rental for a few days, and be well within the cost of a used similar size harvester. In fact, a team of just 5 employees doing 1 acre a day would end up finishing in 3 years, with most of the wheat being rejected for being too old, rotten, and moldy. Now, we were still back on the battery. The store pointed out that state law prohibited return and suggested I wait to return the exchange. But I said I can't wait for when I can exchange the battery, as it may be too late to harvest my wheat. The credit card company reminded them they had an obligation to sell working merchandise, and they need to make an exception to either exchange for another now or allow defective battery return for full refund when returns are allowed. Well, the store said no refund on returned batteries for any reason and refused to allow an exchange due to the law. So these were my options. Either exchange it now, make an exception and allow refund later, pay for a rental combine harvester out of their own pocket, or send a few hundred employees on their dime. And obviously the answer to all of that was no. Ultimately, the credit card company ruled in my favor, and the store was told they can come and pick up the dead battery anytime for the return. In the end, I got a new battery from a different store and have never gone back to the first one ever since. Now, the dead battery and the original old battery have been sitting in my barn for about 4.5 years now. I sent them them a reminder when Michigan lifted the return ban, and a few months later. And since it is considered abandonment after they ignored my last reminder, maybe I'll send it to someone to try and rebuild it. If it's not rebuildable, I can still take both somewhere and get some money out of it. So if the employee of this store is reading this and remembers this situation, this will be your last chance to come in and pick up your stupid battery. But be sure to bring help in a broom. The battery is around 120 pounds with about 20 pounds of dust all on the top of it. My God, the people who run that store are idiots. Are they really willing to go through all these other measures just to make sure they don't give you a battery instead of just giving you the battery straight up? First off, it would have been so simple to be like, okay, here you go. Like, just say screw the rules and exchange it, and then no one has to know the wiser. Sure, it might be against the law, but at the end of the day, this is something that you guys caused. You sold a defective battery. Like, are you kidding me right now? There's got to be some exception to the rule. And did they really say, oh, you could harvest it by hand? Like, are you kidding me? What is going on right now? That's not going to work. Like, this guy's a complete idiot. The fact that he would make that kind of assumption and be like, oh yeah, this could happen. You could do this. It's like, no, you can't. You would need a few hundred people just to get that done. Not to mention renting out an entirely new harvester. Like, just give him the battery. It's cheaper that way. So good for you for taking the steps to make sure these people didn't get away with this garbage, because the way they treated you was absolutely insane. Entitled customers are constantly bothering me, as they literally have zero common sense in everything that they do, leaving me wondering how they function on a daily basis. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in a grocery store, and earlier today I was collecting baskets from the front to take back to the entrance, and you have to go through the produce section to get there. When I'm around 15 feet from the door, this guy who looked to be in his 40s or 50s walks in and immediately turns to the side and drops a handful of garbage into one of the stacks of baskets already by the door, and then makes his way into the store. Now, I have no problem with being confrontational when I need to be, but I hate it, so I wasn't going to say anything, but I was picking up his trash, so I thought to myself, you know what, screw it. I turned around to face the guy who was still pretty close to me, and I say to him, hey sir, don't throw your garbage here, there's a bin right there. And I then point to the garbage bin, which I kid you not is literally 2 steps to the side. Well, he looks taken aback, and then starts nervously laughing and apologizing, saying that he didn't see the bin, but I was too tired to engage any further, so I just said, okay, and I turned around to continue putting the baskets away. But like, seriously, even if you didn't see the bin, why on earth would you just dump your trash into the baskets? Well, not even 2 minutes later, when I was done, this guy was still there looking for some kind of squash, and he sees me walking away and gets my attention to ask me something. He looks at me and says,
I've never eaten this before. How do you cook it?
I looked at him and I said, I don't know, I've never had it either. He then looked at me confused and said,
Oh, what? You don't know how to cook it?
And at this point, I was dumbfounded, so I just said no, and then I started to walk away from him. But as I'm doing so, I hear him turn to another customer and ask them. And it's like, buddy, Google is free. Why don't you use that instead of bothering people? People assuming that me or one of my coworkers know every little detail about different products happens a lot more often than you would think. And it baffles me every time they get this confused look on their face when I tell them I have no idea how to cook or use whatever they're talking about. Because clearly with some people, common sense is just not a strong suit. Okay, if I was in this scenario, I would not even care about the food he was asking about. If he's trying to figure out how to cook some squash, I would be like, yeah, whatever. But it's the fact that he dropped his trash in the baskets I was bringing into the store. Like, that would have driven me crazy. If you don't have some kind of like robot to help you push those carts along, those carts can be very obnoxious to push. So for that guy to walk up and put trash in the basket after you've gone through all the trouble of bringing it back in, like, that is so annoying, and I don't blame you in the slightest for getting frustrated. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for pulling back and planning to cut contact with my friends after they went on vacation to a city without me that I always wanted to go to? Because right now there's a massive divide between us, and at this point I don't know what to do. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have 2 female best friends who we will call Lindsay and Jessica. Those are not their real names. We've basically been friends since the 5th grade. Now, I'm pretty introverted and hard to trust due to personal stuff, so I don't have a lot of very close friends, meaning that I only have those 2. Well, or so I thought. I got my dream vacation for my 18th birthday and spent almost 2 weeks away during the summer holidays. My friend knew this loosely, and at some point during the holidays, Lindsay asked me when I was going to be away. Well, a few weeks later, my mother asked me if I was joining Lindsay and Jessica on their vacation. Now, I didn't know anything about that, but apparently they were going to a city that I love, and they knew that I love that city. I confronted Lindsay about it, and she said she didn't bother since I would be away on my dream vacation, and I would not have come along even if they asked me. I was mostly upset that they didn't communicate it to me at all, and it felt like they were going behind my back. A few days later, we wanted to take the same subway to a school event, and I missed the train. And again, they didn't even think to wait for me at all. And they walked from the subway to the event without thinking about me. They do this a lot, by the way. I tend to wait for them for stuff and make an effort to spend time with them, but they rarely ask me to meet up with the two of them. They meet up to go shopping together all the time. I see their snaps. During COVID, Lindsay and I met up outside, and we walked to Jessica's house to meet up with her too. And later, I met up with Jessica to walk to Lindsay's house and meet up with her too, because I thought it was a cute thing to do amongst friends. But they never bothered to do the same with me. So yes, I was hurt. I found out that almost all my friends were going to that city together. I was really hurt, so I decided to not talk to the two of them for a while, and they didn't even make any effort to reach out to me at all for almost 4 weeks. During that time, I still had contact with them, as we did share classes and have extracurricular activities together, so I will admit that I was a bit of a jerk to them, and I was pretty passive-aggressive. After 4 weeks, I reached out to Lindsay because I couldn't bear it anymore, and she said they felt I was being unreasonable and cruel. Now, I apologized to make the peace, but she didn't really do that. When I went to talk to Jessica, she asked me, "Are we talking to each other again?" And she said this in a really mean tone of voice. I was in a right mind to tell her no and just leave, but I didn't. Later, she said I was overreacting and being childish, so she didn't see a point in talking to me. But now, the friendship is so uneasy at best, and I don't think I can forgive them and keep up the friendship after we graduate. I've also been a bit colder to the both of them. For context, I'm Arrow Ace, and I don't have a dividing line between platonic and romantic feelings, so my hurt might be overreacting somewhat, and I understand that, but it doesn't change how I feel. So am I the jerk for the way things have gone down? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it doesn't sound like you, Lindsay, and Jessica are good friends at all. Because based on what you're describing, it sounds like you're the third wheel. And sure, you probably don't want to hear that, but it just kind of seems that way. And that's really not fair to you. Like, you really do deserve friends who want you around and who value your time and attention. So the fact that these people are just like, "Oh yeah, whatever, you're overreacting all because we excluded you again." It's like, that's really what's going on here. They're excluding you and they're not involving you in stuff that they're doing. So no, I don't blame you if you do want to cut them off as friends, but I think there might be some kind of way of making things right if they are reasonable human beings in general. So hopefully things do work out, but if they don't, I hope you find better friends than this, because what you described honestly sounds awful. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she is insane for not teaching her daughter English, because she claims that they won't be needing it as they plan on moving back to Sweden at some point in the future? But right now, my parents are saying that I went a little bit too far and that I might be the jerk in this situation. So at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and my family is originally from Sweden. My sister, who we will call Kristen, is 30 years old and was born in Sweden and was raised speaking Swedish and English. She and my parents came to the United States when she was 10 years old, and I was born not long afterwards. I was raised only speaking English. My parents did not bother having me learn Swedish because it isn't a widely spoken language where we live. And in fact, when I was little, they had a rule that Kristen could only talk to me in English. And they did this because they didn't want to hinder me being able to communicate with my peers. Now, I visited Sweden maybe twice when I was really little, and I don't have any recollections. Kristen, however, has a lot of fond memories from her childhood. Since she's moved out, she has regularly visited Sweden. She has been married to her husband, who we will call Eric, for about 3 years now, and Eric is also from Sweden and came to visit the United States in his early 20s. Eric was also raised speaking Swedish and English, but is more comfortable talking in Swedish. They also have a daughter that we will call Elsa, who is 18 months old and is learning to talk. When they came over for Christmas dinner, I tried to talk to Elsa, but Kristen told me that I can only talk to Elsa in Swedish, but not English. Now, I thought she was raising Elsa to speak both Swedish and English, but she told me that they are not going to bother teaching her English. Well, I asked why, and Kristen told me that they want Elsa to be connected to her heritage, and also because they plan on eventually moving back to Sweden. I asked if she had any idea as to when they will be moving, and she said it could be 1 year or even 10 years. I then told Kristen that she is doing Elsa a big disservice by not teaching her English, but she told me that it won't be an issue, as she'll apparently learn it when she goes to kindergarten. I then said that I can understand wanting Elsa to know Swedish, and if they had any immediate plans to move back to Sweden, then I could understand prioritizing Swedish over English. But since they don't have any immediate plans to move back there, she should learn both languages now so she can communicate with her English-speaking relatives in the United States, as well as her peers and teachers when she goes to school. I said that not teaching Elsa any English at all was insane. Well, when I said that, Kristen got mad at me and told me that I'm being xenophobic. I told her this would not be an issue if Elsa speaks English too, but because almost nobody around here speaks Swedish, she is hindering her daughter. She said that it's possible that by the time Elsa is ready to start school, they might have moved back to Sweden. Now, Now, my parents are mostly on my side, but say that they understand why she's doing this, and that I was being harsh by saying that it was insane for not teaching her English, and that I should be more understanding. But I feel it's equally harsh for her to say that I'm xenophobic. I think it's great to be multilingual, but one needs to be able to communicate with the majority of the people where they live. But now I'm starting to feel like maybe I was too harsh, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first off, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what your sister is doing really is stupid. Like, why would you not actively try to teach your kid English? She's gonna go into kindergarten speaking Swedish, and then nobody's gonna be able to talk to her. And granted, there's probably a chance she'll learn just by being in an English-speaking country, so there might be some kind of like exposure aspect to this where it's like, okay, she learned it just by living in the culture, but that is not a risk I would be willing to take. But they're also operating under the assumption that they might move back to Sweden in the future, maybe. And they're not even giving any kind of like clear timeline as to when that might happen if they want to do that. So why not just teach both languages? It wouldn't be that hard to have like both Swedish and English being taught in the house. So yeah, I'm 100% on your side, and I think your parents are idiots for trying to be like, wow, you need to be more understanding, because not teaching their kid English is really going to be giving her a disservice. And when things go poorly with this, those parents will have no one else to blame except for themselves. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.